who would they be? We've got kids under 16. I know there's some youngsters that do work, and so does the Bureau of Labor Statistics know that. Everybody knows that. But the point is, for our statistical purposes, we're just not going to count anybody under 16. Okay? That's a lot of people. Then there are institutionalized persons. They are in prisons, perhaps. They're in mental institutions. They're in hospitals, nursing homes. Institutionalized persons. There's a lot of those people. In fact, out of a population of about 300 million, maybe about 70 to 75 million persons are just not really fit for working. Common sense tells us that. So we're not going to count them. And when you don't count them, you're down at somewhere around 230 or 225 million. 225 to 230 million, just in rough estimates. Right? Now, there is another group of people who are able-bodied, who are potentially employable. They're 16. They're fit to work. They could work, fit enough for work. They could work, but they choose not to work for whatever reason. There's a lot of those people. There's students, high school students, college students. Maybe they're on a scholarship. Maybe their parents just are supporting them in such a way that they don't have to work. And in that case, we're not going to count them. They're choosing not to work. Who else? There are housewives. Spot, what are you doing? I'm filming this at home, and my dog is right here. And he was resting comfortably on the sofa, and now he's wants to get involved in the show. Oh well. Just relax, my Spot. Sit. Lie down, honey. Good boy. Thank you. All right. Housewives. They're house husbands. It's an equal opportunity job. There are retirees. Most people after 62, 65, 67 say, I've had enough. They could work. They're healthy enough, but they choose not to work. Look, there's other groups you can think of, I suppose. There's filthy rich people, right? Some people are so filthy rich that they don't have to work. I don't happen to know any of them, but you know, good for them. They're lucky. You guys, whenever I'm in class, people say, well, you know, there's just some lazy bums out there. What about them? Okay, we'll throw them in there. I often think that the filthy rich people and the bums are actually the same group of people. I'm not sure whether it's always true, but I suppose in some cases it may be. Anyway, students, housewives, retirees, that's the bulk of them. And this is another 70 to 75 million persons. A lot of people. So you take away 70 from 75, we're talking anywhere from 150 million people to 160 remaining. But it means that there's up to 150 million people that we're just not even going to count. I guess the actual number is probably closer to, well, I'm trying to think. See, this number here begins to be called, it has a title, it's called the labor force. The labor force. It's probably around 155, 158 million presently. So, you know, these are rough estimates. they're mostly for conceptual purposes. But right now we're operating with a labor force of about 155, 160 million, somewhere in that ballpark. All right? So, we got a labor force. There's going to be one more adjustment. I'm going to flip this page, hope it goes good through, good. So let's call the labor force 155 million. There's going to be one more adjustment that the Bureau of Labor Statistics does to try to isolate what's happening in the private sector, private enterprise, just households and firms. They'll take out military personnel. Military personnel. Subtract that. Maybe that's 3 million, whatever it is. We can look it up and verify it for the next class. Anyway, I'm going to write 152 million for the very key concept called the civilian labor force. The civilian labor force. It might be a little higher in the United States today. All these numbers are estimates, rough estimates. But the process of thinking through what has to be done in order to get an accurate unemployment statistic, that's all perfect. I mean, this is the approach. We can't include everybody. We can't expect everybody to be working. Some people, well, they're too young. They're too old. They're in nursing homes. They're in prisons. They're not participants in the normal sense. Nor could they be. Let's not count them. Then there are people of age that we notice that they got other things to do. They're working in other things. They're housewives. They're volunteering, whatever. They're resting. At any rate, they're not counted. Take out the military, we got civilian labor force. In the civilian labor force, there are two categories. Everything comes in pairs. You are either employed, one of the lucky ones, or you are unemployed. But wait. Already, this unemployed group is more than just the number of people that don't have a job. We took out a lot of people. We took out people in that second group, able-bodied of age, who were not seeking or were not willing to accept the going wage, weren't really making themselves available. Aha. So, either you're employed or unemployed, and when you're unemployed, you're not just out of work. You're not just seeking. But you're also sort of unavailable. You're not willing to take the going wage. All right, so that's a key aspect there. Trusting that all that shows up on the video. If not, I'm going to have to retape this part of the video. One more thing. I'm going to flip the page and do one more aspect of unemployment in a statistical sense. When you see the rate of unemployment covered in the press, mentioned on the radio, it means that the Bureau has finished its survey. We'll get into the survey in a few minutes. It's finished its survey and determined something like this. Well, there was a civilian labor force of about 160 million. And there was a group of unemployed persons properly conceived, defined, and counted. And maybe that was like Maybe that was like 8 million. Just saying. Well, if those were the numbers, 8 million over 160 million, then immediately that translates into an unemployment rate of 5%. So the rate, as publicized, is the result of unemployed persons, that number divided by the civilian labor force. So you can see, I mean, in real life, 5% turns out to be a lot of people. That's 8 million people. Every percentage point on the unemployment rate is 1.6 million people. And then if they belong to a household, 2 other people in the household are affected by that unemployment. We have 7% unemployment today, maybe 8. So right now, with our 7 or 8% unemployment, we have upwards of 10 million persons still affected by the hangover from the recession of 2008-2009. It's a lot of people. And when that rate was, close to 10%, obviously 15 million people are involved, and their families, 2 or 3 other people in the household. Talking about like a third of the nation, after a little while, being affected either directly through their employment or because they live in the household of an unemployed person. So there's no small impact here when we have an economic recession. And this past one was a doozy. Anyway, time for another pause. You have most of the fundamentals here, but there's some technical aspects I want to cover. Other definitions, other types of unemployment that will be important to cover. And I'm going to close this video out, make a new file, so to speak, and it'll be separate, all right? Although it'll be on the same topic of unemployment. Okay, good.